Welcome back to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. Amish Phil, he's back again. He's interested in a whole host of subjects, and he's here to bring some good education to some good people.
I wouldn't go that far. I'm about as good at educating as a really shit teacher, and I had plenty of them when I was a kid.
Yeah, so what's the problem?
Don't stop hyping me, Robbie.
I watched a TikTok video of a teacher just calling out all the crap in the education system. She was like, you can't teach your kids anything anymore. Every word's banned, every book's banned. And she's just going off. And I'm like, what grade does she teach? And it turns out it's like second grade. I'm like, what are you teaching the kids that is so valuable in second grade? I don't remember learning much, but how a monarch or how a butterfly turns into, or a caterpillar turns into a butterfly.
No, it seems to just be a system. It's just a machine to churn out useful parts of the machine. You know, it's like a conveyor belt. We call it primary school. You'd call it I don't know what you call it, grade 1 to 7, something like that. And then we have high school that you start at age 11, and you do that for 5 years, and then you go to what we call college, which isn't what you call college, because we call that university. It's all confusing. We have different names for the same things. So you do that for 2 years, and then you go to university and get your degree, and then you get a job, and then you slave away for some corporate asshole for 30 years. So that one day, hopefully you get to retire and start living your life. It's a sham. It's an absolute sham.
I don't know. It's what's conforming. Is that what it is? Conforming. It's just going to the 9 to 5 life and hoping that one day you don't just have the balls to stick a gun in your mouth.
Well, yeah, you funneled into this direction, you know, right from a really young age, from when you're a little kid. It's like you'll have him like you go to the careers advisor at school. They call it something else over there.
Oh, career officer. I thought you said career advisor, but it sounded like you said Korean advisor. I was like, wait, what?
The North Korean advisor.
Communist
You will
China.
come here and you will never leave. So yeah, and it's like I remember going to one of them when I was like 13 years old, and they're like, what do you want to do when you're older? It's like, I don't know, just play with my dick and be an idiot. Can someone pay me for that? No. It's like, what thing? You know, there's the odd one, isn't there? You'll know maybe when you were growing up, when you were like 13, 14, and you might have had the odd friend who was like, I want to be a vet. And they were, you know, and they actually ended up doing that.
That was me. I wanted to be a vet. And then when I took my dog to the vet stuck his finger up my dog's butt. And I go, well, I don't want to do that anymore. So then I went to school.
You got to look after the anal glands, man.
I know. I watched in a zoo when I went over the weekend. I watched a chimp hang on to another chimp's butt, like the hole, and just start tugging. I mean, like full force. And I'm like, oh my God.
Like a bowling ball. He used him like a bowling ball.
That's the thing. Like, I get it now when people are like, zoos are just horrible places of like torture for animals. Because I went there, it was the saddest thing, and it wasn't sad like in the sense of all these animals being locked up. It was just they were missing half their exhibits. I was like, to a kid, it's probably wonderful, but the only good part was I got to ride the shuttle back to the car. That was awesome because it was like, dang, it felt like we were walking for an hour and a half, and we just went lazy and took the shuttle and made it back
Space
to the
shuttle.
Yeah, but the zoo was just upsetting. They were missing everything. No polar bears, no bears at all. All they had was a rhinoceros, a zebra. And then the woman goes, sooner or later, the rhinoceroses are going to be extinct. And then we're all going to, I'm like, no, artificial intelligence will take care of all that. We're going to grow them all in pods.
Hey, if you did get to be a vet, you'd be able to do artificial insemination of cows. Have you heard about that?
Is that the sales?
There was a theft. There was a big theft in the UK this week. In fact, it was in Northern Ireland, and there was 2 cryogenic tanks that were stolen full of bull cum.
Why?
Because it's like the tanks themselves are worth $2,500.
What?
And then these cryogenic tanks.
All right, Phil, time to roll those fucking sleeves up. Let's go. Let's get to work.
Right. Each tank holds 300, they're called semen straws. And each tank holds between 300 and 600. And these semen straws, like a tankful might fetch $50,000 on the black
I'm
market
too
for bull
hungover for
semen.
this conversation.
And so
Not
you know what
ready.
it is, because like they pick the biggest, buffest, most based Sigma Chad bull, and then they milk that fucker for all he's worth, put the cum in the semen straws, and then they sell it, right? And then what happens is, if you're the vet, you got to get the semen straw, you know, wipe it,
I
wipe
feel
the
like
bull
we're
cum on your
violating
fingers,
YouTube
right?
guidelines
You,
here, and I just don't know because I got so many now. It's just not even worth it anymore.
but if you want to be a vet, this is what you got to do. You got to wipe that bull cum on your fingers, and then you just got to rape that cow. Just fist it
All right, change the
and make
subject.
it
'Cause you're
pregnant.
making me sick and hungry.
Oh dear, I'm in a giddy mood today.
Why is that?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have to apologise to your listeners, Robbie. They probably weren't expecting this, were they?
No. Usually you come on and talk about something ancient Egypt related or something like that, but you just straight went up into the artificial insemination with a bull.
Yeah, well, we did a story about it yesterday. I just found it really interesting how much it's worth. I'm wondering if our cum's going to be worth a lot one day.
What I found interesting about your show yesterday was you started talking about censorship issues and you started talking about monetization for podcasts. You were talking about because obviously people donate into your show. And you're talking about because it's unless you're like you're not going to be living off of a podcast unless you're like already famous. You made a really good point by saying that. But the issue is that the advertisement on Anchor or Spotify, wherever you upload that to, has just changed. And I think it is the most ridiculous thing in the world because what they changed it to was a new update. So usually you get ambassador ads for your podcast. So basically you can run like a little ad that says, hey, thanks for choosing Spotify for podcasters. And then it's like a little script that you have to read and then it goes right into your show. Well, they let you do that every month. I've made like $60 a week doing that. So it was
really
good. But now they changed it to where there's eligibility requirements. And to me, it's a big disservice to any person that's looking to try and make a little bit of money off their podcast, even if their audience might be small, because now you have to have 1,000 unique listeners. So that means in the previous month, those listeners don't count unless it's on a different device than the one that they were already listening to you on.
So you have to have 1,000 unique listeners a month to qualify. Is that
so? Right. So if I listen to your show every single day, and let's say we do a time span of 2 months, my listening ship next month is not going to count towards your eligibility requirements because technically I'm not a unique listener. I'm still listening to you. I'm an old listener.
Wow. Right. I see. So like we do one every week. So if we'd need, if we had 250 listeners, say, on Spotify, that would be 1,000, downloads, but it would only count as 250 unique listeners.
Yeah.
It's a fucking scam, man. It's like Spotify, they sweep up everyone's stuff and then they charge people for premium. There's only a few, the handful of shows that are like, what do they call it? Like Spotify exclusive, like Rogan. But everyone sort of updates their show, their RSS feed to Spotify, and then they just whore it out. And it's like, I would love to be off Spotify, really, because I don't like the way they do it. But it's just so many people use it. It's like YouTube and all the rest of it, isn't it? Well, it's so hard to get people to move to like a proper podcasting app that doesn't.
It's really going to be impossible. You're not going to. You're not incentivizing people to want to start their own, which is a problem because it eliminates people's creative ideas. I mean, it's just like censorship is. It curbs your intelligence by having people self-censor themselves. There's certain topics you can't talk about because of YouTube. There's certain things on Spotify you can't talk about because of YouTube. I already can't monetize this episode because you went into the bull insemination shit.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, that's not like misinformation or disinformation. I'm telling you the truth, man.
Bud Light is not going to want to sponsor or advertise on an episode that talks about bull insemination. Actually, you know what? They didn't have Dylan Mulvaney, didn't they? So might as well.
I was going to say, if it gets 1 million hits, they will.
Yeah, I mean, but that's different. That's different.
There must be like podcasts like, Rogan talks about gross things like that sometimes, doesn't he? With like if he has like Tim Dillon or someone like that on.
Yeah, but
I think
see,
it's just a numbers game
again,
to him.
those are already famous people.
Yeah. No, I think it's true. When I think about the people who've sort of made it as podcasters, if that's even the right term, most of them already had a public profile to start with. So I remember early on in podcasting, it was a lot of comedians. Every other podcast was by a stand-up comedian. And now political figures, TV personalities, sports people, or retired sportsmen and women. They've come to the end of their professional career in the mid-30s or something, and then 2 or 3 of them will get together and start a podcast, and they'll do really well.
It's called because View.
You've got this leg up, you see. Oh, The View, is it?
Yeah. Remember all those bats that are just on television, just screeching about, some bull crap?
Yeah, Whoopi's on it, isn't she? Yeah.
That's the worst.
And we don't get it over here.
I would never watch. Good for you. I'm moving to where you're at. Jeez.
I think it's our fault. I think we started that because in the UK it's called Loose Women. And it's the same format. It's like 4 or 5 middle-aged female TV presenters, journalists, that sort of thing, around a table, just being horrific harpies.
That's why I liked all the controversial subjects. I don't like all I would never be able to commentate on today's political climate just because I've been so stuck in like the JFK stuff. But I just like those discussions better. I like the more controversial, I wouldn't even call them conspiracy subjects, but more in the realms of things people just have no information on. But people have heard things like I'm getting into Jonestown recently. Just because it's so fascinating. But now most of my stuff, like I can probably give you a more accurate description because of the fact that I've been making YouTube shorts. And you mentioned this in your episode too, is you don't do that. Do it. I have 5,000 views on one video that was posted 16 hours ago. That's how YouTube shorts just trend for some reason. I don't know why. I guess it's because it's a minute.
Was that a JFK short?
No, it was a Jonestown short.
Right, yeah. I suppose, yeah, if you can pick the right, it's getting the right subject matter to do one on, isn't it? If I do a short on artificial insemination in cows, I don't think it's going to get 5,000 views,
no, it's going to get, actually, it might. There might be like a large audience we don't know about. There's a GIMP community, apparently, I found out about listening to your show.
Yeah, the Somerset GIMP, the saga is over. He's finally been sentenced. Yeah, this is a story we've been covering for about 5 years, I think. The mystery of the Somerset GIMP. It was like part true crime, part cryptid. Is this because at one point he looked like he was phasing in and out of reality on the photos. He wasn't. It was just a guy in a GIMP suit being a perv and writhing on the road in front of female motorists and touching himself and
that's what he was doing,
making funny noises. Yeah, just gimping about.
I had to wait for it because I was like, what? Like, because some people get charged with being a peeping tom, and it's like, well, how long do you look into a window until you're classified as a peeping tom? I mean, they're fucking transparent for a reason. You're supposed to look through the window, but it's like if you guys make eye contact, you give it like 3 seconds and then look away. Like, what's the record until they start calling you a peeping tom?
Yeah, I remember this being a story not long ago. It was some sort of corporate. They made
a whole movie on it. The guy in the balcony with the binocular staring into the other guy's apartment from across the street, and the guy was gonna get like murdered or something like that. Remember that movie?
I don't know. I'm shit at movies unless they were made in the 80s.
That was the whole movie. It's like Room 514 or something like that.
Oh, right. Wasn't Robin Williams, was it?
I don't think so. The guy was trying to tell him that he was going to get murdered, and he was just across the street of the hotel with the binoculars just watching this guy.
Wow. I did actually watch a film, and it's last weekend, and it's your fault because I was putting my kids to bed.
Is it Dewey Cox?
And was it to do with Cox?
Dewey Cox, the movie, the one with the Beatles.
Oh,
great record.
Great record.
Have you heard the new record?
Have you heard the new record?
The one that was made by AI?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all right.
The Beatles record.
It's pretty
It's
good.
just okay, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all right.
It's just okay. It's okay. It's no, yeah.
Amy Winehouse was the best.
Oh, the AI one.
Yeah, that was really good. Like that gave me faith in AI, but then I'm seeing all this stuff now that's kind of scaring me again.
I was putting the kids to bed and I came downstairs and my missus had put a movie on and it was just starting and it was like a medieval Japanese guy. He'd just been killed, and then it flashed up the titles on the screen, Mortal Kombat, and I went, "Oh, Robbie's told me about this, and the fatalities are awesome."
Wait, it was an actual movie or the original one?
It was the latest movie that came out 2 years ago, and I realized,
oh shit,
you were telling me about the video game,
yeah,
not the movie. So I sat through the entire fucking movie.
it wasn't a really good movie.
No, it wasn't.
No, it was pretty. The original one was a lot better. The newer one was kind of crap. But no, you've never played the video game.
I played the video game on the Sega Mega Drive.
Ooh,
do you remember that console?
Yes.
That's it had 3 buttons and a start button and a D-pad, and that would have been I think Mortal Kombat 2 I remember getting, and so I guess that might have been 1993, something like that, when that came out.
How do you feel about your kids playing like violent video games? Have you seen the graphics on the newest Mortal Kombat? It's pretty like I mean, even for me, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I would let a young child play that.
No, you showed me the fatalities from the newest game, and they were pretty extreme, almost comical. Well, they are. They're comical. My kids play the most sort of violent game they play is Fortnite, which isn't really. It's not gory, is it? It's sort of cartoony violence, but it's still shooting people. But it's, they're not humanized. It's they're avatars, and obviously animated avatars. It's not, and there's no gore that I can remember, no blood splatters or anything like that.
Which is weird because you have no empathy for if you kill a human in a video game, if it's really cartoony like. If it's more realistic, you kind of feel something from it. But then if it's an animal, it doesn't matter if it's cartoon like or it's not. You're gonna have some type of empathy with that.
Yeah, I think so. That makes sense. And it's like, is it really a big deal anyway? Because like I was saying, Mortal Kombat 2, if that came out in 1993, then I was 10 years old when I was playing that with blood splatter and fatalities. I found there was like some magazine, like gamer magazine, that had the fatalities in it. The code, you had to do a code when the commentator says finish him. You'd have to press up, down, left, right, A, B, start, something like that to do a different fatality. And yeah, so I was like 10 years old, and look how I turned out. Absolutely perfect, huh?
Star citizen right there.
Yeah. So I think kids, my
argument's falling apart.
Yeah, I think when it's video games, it's okay. The thing that worries me with my kids as they get older is them seeing other like real horrific stuff that floats around online, especially from places where there's war going out, going on.
Dude, I was just at the gym this morning doing cardio, and the TV in front of me was showing people that had just got hit with like a drone or something like that, and they're like cars flipped upside down, people lying across the street with blood all over them. One dude's bleeding from his head, a baby's like whole part of its eyes bleeding all the way down the whole side of the face. I literally had to look away, and like a girl behind me that was doing cardio, like I heard her go, "Aw," and I was just like, Are you saying all to the TV or all to me? Because I'm about to vomit from this horrible thing I'm watching at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. Yeah. I think they don't really show anything graphic on the TV in the UK. And if they do, it's after 9 p.m. and it's they usually give a warning before they show it, that this is report contains graphic material and whatnot.
Which, if you look at like the history of films or anything like that, the fact that we're this far in just like 40 years, you couldn't show boobs on the television. You couldn't show boobs in movies. That was all banned. You had to go to a private theater like the one Pee Wee Herman went to, rest in peace. But there was like serious like concerns of censorship because we wanted to have this and this is what I think. Every single thing that we've had large restrictions on, it's gone the opposite now. Think about it. Movies, graphic content, marijuana. Look where we're at now with the amount of legalization that's going on. It's just everything that's going to like, what's rollerblades? That's the only thing that's flipped. Rollerblades were well accepted. Now, if you wear them, they call you one of them queers or something, and then you're done.
One of them queers or something. Really? Yeah, music's another one. So there was a whole when rap started really getting popular in the 80s, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, and there was a big call to sort of what would you call it? Not desensitize, sanitize that whole scene, and you know, it seems to me that rap music, lyric content wise, is more extreme than ever.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. It's well, it's like what they call it, prohibition. It just doesn't work. It kind of goes against human nature, doesn't it? You know, we've tried it with all sorts of different things. You famously tried it with alcohol about 100 years ago, didn't you? Prohibition. And it just goes underground. People will do what they want to do. And you just create a black market, in which cases it's often more dangerous. I'm sort of not for government, but I can see the utility in legalizing and regulating stuff, assuming that the regulators are actually doing their jobs. You know, and if you're sort of for government and a state and all the rest, you can make the argument, well, legalize it, regulate it, tax it, and it'll be safer and just let people do what they want to do. So I can see that argument.
Could I challenge you on the thing where you say you're not for the government?
Yeah.
What got you to that point? Obviously doing the show, we talked about it last time, but like what certain topics? Because I feel like a lot of the topics you talk about don't really go to the deep political stuff, what I would call parapolitical research.
No, it comes to it's just a fundamental belief or a fundamental principle, and it's around this sort of natural law topic that you know you don't have the right to tell me what to do, and I don't have the right to tell you what to do, and we don't need these systems that are in place to organize ourselves. Everything should be voluntary in basis. You know, it's the whole taxation is theft kind of paradigm, and that you know we're born into a system where we're compelled to live by certain rules that we've never agreed to, and we have no say in the matter. You know, I'm not happy about the money that I'm forced to give my government being spent either propping up terrorists or uh, buying weapons of mass destruction or used to influence foreign leaders to fuck over their citizens. It's like, no, I don't want to, I don't want to support that heinous shit that you do. But we don't have a choice because we're born into this system. So, you know, practically, it's very difficult to argue for a stateless society because we are where we are. And we've lived in this situation for centuries now where we've had this state and government seems to just grow and grow and grow and becomes more, what would you say, more influential all the time in our lives. But I mean, there was a story yesterday that one of my co-host, he posted in our group server, and it was a report that was released. Well, it wasn't released, sorry. It was leaked. It was leaked documents sparked furious backlash from groups who fear freedom of expression could be suppressed. And basically, the government has drafted this report, and the plan is to label anyone who undermines the UK as an extremist. Government officials have drawn up deeply controversial proposals to broaden the definition of extremism to include anyone who, quote, undermines the country's institutions and its values. So if you say anything that undermines, say, the National Health Service or the judiciary or the House of Lords,
Or anybody that directs policy.
yeah, they want to label you an extremist.
I guess
And then
that's the dangerous
yeah.
part about calling it terrorism, because like isn't it much like labeling things communism? Like it just causes people to just wipe their hands with it and walk away, being like, okay, if that's a communist, I don't want to associate with them. Like I had to really understand that word more just because of the fact of like we use like communist was used on everything and it just desensitized people from looking into it. It's like the word terrorist. You say that it desensitizes people from looking into it. And that's the worst thing you can do is not try to understand something. Like I'm very critical about our government just because I've seen a lot of things where the government has purposely created monsters so they have a witch hunt to go after so they can get funding and then new restrictions put in. And, a lot of people don't know certain scenarios where that happens. And for me, it's historically like Jim Jones from Jonestown. If you know what Jonestown is, where the word "drink the Kool-Aid" that whole thing comes from. Um, there's a lot of documents that came out in 97, over 52,000, I think, documents that were recorded about Jim Jones' connections with the intelligence services. A lot came out in separate investigations to show that Jim Jones might have been a CIA asset in some certain scenarios because of the fact the U.S. Embassy in Guyana was giving reports that the government was making on Jonestown to Jim Jones. So the guy who's leading the cult that the government is surveilling is also getting the reports that the government is printing out and sending to their embassy. How did he have it? Well, those connections. Like some of the main politicians down here, Walt Brown, not Walt Brown. Oh God, I'm gonna blank on his name. George Moscone, I think his name is. Dan Moscone, maybe. And then Harvey Milk, the congressman that was killed. Um,
Right, yeah.
yeah,
There's a movie about him made, I think, wasn't there?
Yeah, he wrote a letter to President Jimmy Carter saying how good of a person Reverend Jim Jones was. Now, this was all before, obviously, the whole 900 people dead incident, but there's a lot of evidence to support that. Look, everything in Jonestown was dumpy, but they had one thing that was really, really good, and it was their hospital. And you know what drugs they had at their hospital? All the drugs that were in MK Ultra. Isn't that nuts?
I mean, it could have been like a mass experiment, a mass MK Ultra experiment.
That's what they said because when the official numbers of Jonestown are like up in the air. Nobody knows how many people have died. The media settled on 900 because the initial reports that first came out, they said there was 400 dead, 500 dead, and the number kept climbing up. Then eventually the media got to a point where it said 900, and they said that the bodies were just piled up on top of each other. But if you look in those photos, there's a lot there, but I don't think it's 900. You can count, and it's like that doesn't look like 900. And then some of the autopsy reports from like Dr. I think Mutui, one of the Guyana autopsy doctors down there, said that people had injection marks in the back of their necks, and some of them had bullet holes in their backs. So what they had was armed guards forcing people to drink this stuff, and if you didn't drink it, you probably got shot and you probably got injected. I mean, children died there, so I don't think a child's going to drink poison Kool-Aid. It's Flavor Aid, but so that means the parents did it to their kids. And now what the tide has turned in the historical books is that it might not have been a mass suicide. It actually might have been a mass murder. And that's what the whole thing was. Because Jim Jones basically created what they would call a cult. It's like these followers weren't idiotic. They were just trapped. They were basically,
brainwashed.
well, blackmailed. Jim Jones had dirt on all of them, sexual scandals. Some of them were tied up and brought there, and not like that's how. What really ended Jonestown was the death of Congressman Lee O'Ryan. He was shot the second time he showed up there. Because the first time he showed up there, everyone's giving him a tour, he's shaking hands with Jim Jones and everything. And he's like, this place is all right. It doesn't seem bad at all. But some of the people were trying to leave with him. And he's like, what's wrong? And they're like, this is all set up. Like someone handed him a note and was like, this is all set up. This isn't real. This is all just because you're here. And then when he comes back the second time, he gets shot on the airport trying to leave. And that's when the FBI and Congress and everybody starts doing an investigation. And that's literally a day later is when the 900 people Kool-Aid incident happens.
Is Guyana a French? Is it owned by the French?
South America.
South America, because there's French Guyana, isn't there? So it's South America. So it's an independent South American state, is it?
It was Brazil area.
Right. Right. I'm just wondering if there was any sort of black sites nearby, black ops sites nearby, because we know that your lot has bases here, there, and everywhere.
Well, one of Jim Jones' close childhood friends was Dan Mitrione, who was if you look up his name pops up as revolutionizing the Brazilian police's like arrest tactics. They would beat you to death. The Brazilian police would. Well, Dan Mitrione was the one that revolutionized the interrogation techniques we still use today. Some of his methods that he created was hooking up a car battery to someone's testicles. That's his invention. Yeah.
Oh wow, what
So
a guy.
his whole thing was basically revolutionizing psychological brainwashing experiments for the government. That was his whole field of research, was trying to find a way to be able to torture someone, but not kill them, but just make them their mind shatters, things with sound, playing songs on repeat in dark rooms with random lights. That's all his ideas that came out. He literally revolutionized the whole interrogation thing. And that's Jim Jones's like childhood friend.
It's yeah, coincidence? I
Oh,
think not.
like I said, anything I'm telling you right now, this is all stuff that when I'm making YouTube shorts, I'm going through the documentation to back up what people are saying. That is still technically a conspiracy because you can't really say it's 100% proven or it's 100% not, because there's a lot of evidence that supports it, but nobody ever did an official investigation to conclude anything on it.
No, yeah, it's sort of joining the dots, isn't it, and coming up with a theory. It's like half of these things you're never going to find like really cut and dried hard evidence to support a theory like that. It's just what you get is layers and upon layer of coincidence, and everyone has a different level of what they're willing to accept as coincidence. And at some point, you reach the level where you think, "Oh no, this is a setup. This has stretched the bounds of my credulity. I can't accept that this is all just a coincidence anymore." And everyone's different. We're all on like a scale, aren't we? So some people will believe everything is a conspiracy. Everything, literally anything, is a conspiracy. And some people, nothing is a conspiracy. There's no convincing them. You could pick any conspiracy, and it doesn't matter what evidence you bring, they will never accept it because it's too painful psychologically, maybe, to accept. So we're all on this sort of spectrum, and it's where do you lie on that? How skeptical are you? The thing is, it's like I'm skeptical of my government more than anything else. I don't trust them, and I just feel like throughout history there's been multiple areas of government fuckery that we can look at, and why wouldn't they still be doing it today? I'm sure they are. It's just hard to find like proper concrete evidence, isn't it?
Do you have a conspiracy
A conspiracy what?
line?
What do you mean a line like
Like where
a
you,
threshold?
yeah, where you don't cross and be like, that's too far for me.
Oh right. I don't know. I don't know. See, I try and be open minded to everything, but this is that old phrase, isn't there? If don't be too open minded, otherwise your brain will fall out.
I can't do the
Um,
skinwalker stuff. I just,
no,
now I've had the guy who created the show on my show, but whenever someone starts talking about 10-foot people with deer ears or something like that, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. There's a person in a mine working for $2 an hour, hoping to God he gets home safe. Like that's for me, that's my big concern. Not, I'm not worried about aliens somehow landing here. I don't believe a single thing about those UAP hearings.
no. I'm highly skeptical of UAPs and UFOs. I mean, the thing that interests me with even the wildest sort of cryptid shit is if you is the possibility of simulation theory. So if you accept that we live in a simulation, if you think that's plausible, then anything goes. Everything is on the table. 10-foot cryptids with bunny ears is on the table. That could actually be a thing because we're just ones and zeros, and this is a program like the Matrix.
There we go. There's my conspiracy line. Just it's like in one ear and out the other with me on that one. I don't know what it is about the whole technology. Like I can get technology when it's like I am in my opinion of artificial intelligence or enhancements is that once you get it put into your body, somebody's going to find a way to control it, and then you're not going to have control of your own autonomy. That's going to happen. People can say that sounds like conspiracy. That is probably already happening. So that's my fear. But then we get into like simulations and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know too much about it. There is some things though where I'm like, I don't know if it's because I'll just end up after a night of drinking and it's the next day and you don't feel quite right, and you just walk out into the world and you're like, why does everything look different? Like the view of the world is different. Not that it's like better or it's worse, but everything, like you're catching things with your eyes in different angles, like how people would naturally take a photograph when they're like lying on the fucking floor or something like that. And I started noticing that. And I was like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because you're on like your mind's just not fully 100% back to normal capacity yet. But I was like, I bet it's like getting high. If you've ever gotten high, you see the world differently, whether the colors are a little bit brighter, whether you're just noticing certain details on leaves and you end up tripping out for like an hour. That's what is like when you just, I don't know what it is, but for me, maybe the simulation thing might be real. I've looked up at a tree one time and was like, damn, that thing could probably talk if I asked it what its name was.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory, and that's all it is to me, is a theory. But it goes something like you've mentioned AI, and we've got VR, so things like the metaverse, for example. You take the metaverse now, and if I watched that, a bit of a clip of that, not Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, and who's the young hot podcaster who's a friend with Rogan, Lex Friedman, was it? I think it was Friedman and Zuckerberg, and they did a podcast in the metaverse, and it was VR. And it was really quite impressive. The graphics and whatnot. And Lex was jizzing all over the place. Couldn't believe how realistic it was. And so you think, right, well, that's today. That's 2023. What's VR going to look like in 100 years? Assuming a similar level of progression in technology. And so it begs the question, well, if in 100 years VR is completely indistinguishable from your waking normal reality, how do we know that we're not already in the system? And that when you die, that's just like the plug coming out the back of your head and you wake up in the actual real world.
You're going to have a bunch of people just running out in traffic thinking this is a simulation and thinking they're going to wake up back into their bodies.
Well, oh gosh, I don't want to start a cult, Robbie. Simulation cult.
Like I said, look, when you look at Jim Jones, he's probably like, damn, this happened pretty quickly. I didn't even realize I could do this.
I think the point is that there's no way. I mean, some would point to things like synchronicities or weird anomalies that happen, and they would say, or what's the other one? Mandela effects, for example. And they'll say, that's it. That's a glitch. That's a glitch in the code of the simulation. That's another piece of proof that this reality isn't what we think it is. But there's no way of knowing. So my attitude is just live your life as if it wasn't a simulation, and you'll find out in the end.
Do you think about that, like when things go good for you in a certain amount of ways? Like I feel like sometimes if I'm gonna, I don't know, if a bunch of things
never happened.
If a bunch of things go my way, like I hit every green light on the way home or something like that, and it never happens, I just start going, somebody's fucking with me. You know what I mean?
It's like the Truman Show. It's a bit like the Truman Show, but taken to an extreme, isn't it? You know, that was reality TV, so it was pretty.
Wait, where Jim Carrey goes
primitive.
Where Jim Carrey goes, what are you talking about? Who are you talking to? Because she's selling coffee like right in the thing.
no, yeah, the what do they call it? Product placement.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's like a more primitive example of simulation theory, isn't it?
That one scares me though. That's like a real where he's like timing it and seeing like that car is gone. The guy's just walking around the block and he keeps seeing it in the rear view. I'm like, damn. I was like, how many times have I watched my neighbor cut his grass exactly at 2:00 in the morning every single time? The lights aren't even on. He's just cutting it in the dark. I'm like, this guy's like flipped out of the simulation, and then somehow they placed him back in it, and he's not right. You know what I mean?
Is that right? Your neighbor cuts his grass at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, he's an old retired guy. He doesn't have anything else.
Is it not really noisy?
No,
is it not really noisy? His lawnmower.
He's got one of the electric ones. It's like pretty silent.
What a weirdo. So does he put floodlights on while he does it?
He has one searchlight that goes out.
Why?
I don't know.
Why was he doing it at that time?
I don't know.
Is he mental? Is he a vet?
No, he's just retired, man. They have nothing better to do than make people late for work. That's it.
He should be asleep.
No, he's not. He sleeps probably all day, and then he gets up in the middle of the night and just sits down.
I wonder if he worked the night shift all his working life, and then when he retired, he just kept it up.
I never thought about
that. And he couldn't break out of it.
I really never thought about that.
You should ask him.
No.
So, why do you cut your lawn at 2 in the morning, you weirdo? Did you used to work nights or what? That's what I would say.
I'm afraid of getting in one of those conversations that you don't know how to get out of.
You can always run away. Just run away.
It doesn't work. They follow
Pull
you.
pull his pants down first and then run away.
He'll come back to your house. Hey, you ran off in such a hurry. I forgot to tell you. It's like that was supposed to be the conversation was over.
He might be like a UAP
It's
survivor,
it's why
an
people stop.
abductee.
It's why people stop going to self checkout, or no, people stop going to actual checkout and move to self checkout. They were tired of talking to people.
Really? Do you do? I mean, I tend to go to the cashier when I do my weekly shop.
Self checkout for me. Every time I always hear a story or something like that. Like it's the you know, people like. Do you feel like people give off energies?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that there's a certain vibe of people that end up becoming therapists, and it's that energy they put off. Like I don't know, for my whole life, like it's why I went to school for psychology. I was going to do that because I was actually interested in helping people and talking with people and stuff like that. But I just had to start a podcast and make nothing. Um, but no, it was just there's people that would come up to you and they would give you more, they would overshare or like give you a bunch of information and insight into their life. Kind of like when the pandemic was over and people came out into the world again and they were just didn't know how to socialize. They would just be like, I saw a bird. And you're like, what? And they're like, a bird. You're like, excuse me? And they're just like, I like candy. And then they just walk away. And you're like, what the fuck was that? It's because nobody had talked to anybody for like 9 months. You're stuck in your house. Most you got was maybe a phone call from a grandparent who's also stuck inside their house for like the past 50 years because they just don't want to go out. So they don't know how to talk to people anymore. But I noticed that with certain people, like I have friends who are therapists and like they'll just be talking to someone for like an hour. And I'm like, come on, like we're going to be late. Why were you talking to that person for an hour? They're like, I just couldn't get out of the conversation. Person just kept going and going and going and going and going. And I'm like, well, I think it's just your energy you're putting out because you're like very open and like smiling and nodding your head. Next, you know, people will just tell you everything.
Yeah, sort of receptive. People put out a receptive vibe, and if people have been locked up, it's sort of built up, isn't it, inside them, and then they just want to release. I think some people they just need to get stuff off the chest. They just need someone to talk to. I find it in my line of work because I'm self-employed tradesman, and I work just for private customers, and the vast majority of the people I work for are retirees, people in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And oftentimes I'll be working for a little old lady and she won't leave me alone. She'll follow me around and talk to me all the time. And, um, I don't find it annoying. You realize that, Christ, you might be the only person this lady's spoken to in a fucking month. So, take 5 minutes and talk to her and sit down and have a brew and whatnot. Because it's important, man. It's like, I don't know, not all in all cases, but with a lot of people when they get older, they just sort of get fucked off to the side and left. Families aren't as close knit and communities aren't as close knit as they used to be. We're dispersed now. Like I'm from an old working mill town, like a Victorian era mill town. It's pretty run down. There's not many opportunities for young go-getters, young high flyers. Most people, they're educated in this city, then they'll go to one of the bigger cities for university, and then they'll move. They'll relocate to Manchester or London or Glasgow, Edinburgh, somewhere else, a bigger city where there's more opportunity, the lifestyle's more vibrant and all that kind of stuff. And so families sort of get dispersed. Whereas, go back 50 years or more, families all used to live together in the same house a lot of the time, because people were dirt poor and, people couldn't afford their own houses. And families were a lot closer together and not sort of separated. I mean, even internationally now, families, people will move to Canada, move to Australia, move to Europe, to France, whatever, for a job or a better lifestyle, what they think's a better lifestyle.
It's just because people are worried about their time. I don't know if it's the time of the day or if it's the time that's in their week or time that's in their month or time that's in their year, but just people feel like they can't waste minutes of their time or existence on this planet. And I think that's pressures from society. I've probably become more left and politically that way because of the fact that I feel like society creates a lot of problems that people feel like that creates somebody's attitude. There's a lot of stuff like obviously working constantly. If you work 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day, however long, when you get home, you don't want to do certain things that are not fun to you. You don't want to, go do a doctor's appointment. You don't want to go do something like that. So I understand why people just neglect certain things. But then there's an area like where people do have compassion. I feel like they should get paid more for doing it, but they go and volunteer somewhere. They do something in their free time because they're getting something out of it. But at the same time, that thing needs to be done as well too. But if you're asking someone to sit and listen to their neighbor's stories or not flick somebody off in traffic because they're going 20 miles under the speed limit, it's not going to happen because you're now putting someone else's now has their hands on your time. And that is a problem unless it's willingly given to that person, which most of the time it's not in certain situations.
Yeah, it's got to be voluntary. Going back to voluntarism. I'm with you on that. That should be like the founding principle. But yeah, it's difficult because we all realize how time is so limited. It's the one sort of finite resource that we have. And we don't know how the killer is. We don't know how much we have.
I know.
We kind of take it for granted, don't we? That we're just going to wake up the next day when, all sorts of things can happen to you. And so you've got to, I don't know, live for the moment to a degree, haven't you? And then it makes you refocus. Well, how am I spending my time? Do I really want to grind my fingers to the bone for 10 hours a day, 50 hours a week, whatever it is, for 30 years in the hope that, that I'll be able to start living when I'm 50 or 55 or whatever?
When I fell asleep Saturday, I swear I had a pit in my gut that felt like I wasn't going to be waking up in the morning. I don't know why. I don't know if
what were you drinking?
I don't even remember. I think I had an orange for breakfast. So for everybody listening, I went on a vacation, kind of first time in 10 years. I've never done it before. But yeah, I had an orange for breakfast, and then I didn't have any more food until 9 p.m. So everything that was on top of that was like mimosas and other drink shots and everything like that. And I was fine. I wasn't hungry at all. But then it's like, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm getting ready to go to bed. And my heart's just, and I was like, I know when I shut my eyes, I have a strong feeling I'm not going to be opening them back up.
Wow. I've never been that aware when I've been that drunk before that I might not wake up.
I had a panic attack on the Bay Bridge as well, too. I don't know if you know what the Bay Bridge is, but it's a giant bridge. I mean, it's huge. It's in Baltimore, but it takes you like maybe 15, 20 minutes to get across the sucker. And it's just huge. And I was on my phone while they're driving, not me, they're driving. And we're literally at the peak of the bridge, the middle of the bridge. And my buddy hits his little wax pen or whatever, and he's sitting right beside me. And you ever see Beer Fest?
No.
You've never seen Beer Fest?
What is it? A film?
It's a great movie. It's the guys who made Super Troopers.
I've not seen that either.
Damn, you gotta see that too. But there's a scene in the movie. My buddy gets car sick unless he's sitting in the middle. So we have one seat all the way to the left that's just wide open, and he's sitting in the middle, and then I'm off to the right getting crushed. And I just look at him, and in the movie, this is what the guy says. The guy in the movie Beer Fest, he's a big, basically needs two seats. And he's sitting in the middle, and the one guy's like, do you mind scooting over? And the guy goes, I like to sit in the middle. And that's when my buddy just looks at me and says, I like to sit in the middle. I'm like, God, damn it. So that was the whole trip. It's 3-hour drive. So I'm sitting back there just like crushed up against the door while this guy's sitting in the middle. But back to the bridge. So I'm on my phone. He hits this wax pen, biggest hit I've ever seen. The whole car, all the windows are up, and it just fills with smoke. And I don't do weed at all. I hate it. I used to do it all the time when I was a kid, but not anymore. It just gives me bad, wouldn't call it psycho symptoms, but they get
anxiety.
No, it's just some people have a bad reaction to it where they get psychosis from it. And I think it's because I have ADHD. I'm just one of those people that just can't handle it. And I pop my head up because there's smoke all over the place. And I just go from looking at my phone to looking up, and I caught a glimpse of the water. And we were so high up, dude. And I just literally started going. And he said the word Final Destination before I looked up. So all that, and I just started.
Why did he say
that? It was like
that?
the movie Final Destination where the guy starts freaking out on the airplane and everything like that. I literally just started internally freaking out, and you could see I was about to I couldn't catch my breath. He's like, "Are you good?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I don't know." All that just compounded to me. He's like, "You might have got a little contact high," and I was just like, "Dude, I don't know what that was, but we need to pull over something." Holy shit! That felt like I was
Wow.
gonna
That's like,
die
wow. Have you ever had anyone on your show talk about near-death experiences?
in the beginning.
Did you? Yeah, I find them pretty fascinating. That, yeah, it's sort of reality bending, isn't it? And time dilation and all that kind of stuff. My dad had a one, and he didn't tell me until I was like an adult. But he nearly drowned in a canal when he was a kid. And his brother saved his life. He literally pulled him out of the water by his hair. But he told me about having his life flash before his eyes, like a life review. They call it in these days.
I've never had
But
that.
yeah. Oh, the life review.
No, I've almost died 4 times, but I've never had the life review thing.
4 times.
Yeah.
Is this something you talk about on the show?
No.
No. All right.
I
fair
can
enough.
if you want. I just
Well, obviously I'm interested, but I don't want to make
no, it's
you
not
talk about
sensitive to
something
me.
you
I
don't
almost
want to.
died the first time I was very little. Carbon monoxide was leaking in our house, and my everyone was getting sick, but everybody was leaving the house to go to work or school, and I was so young I wasn't in school like yet, so I was just staying and getting the full blunt of it all. That was the first time I had to get rushed to the hospital and stayed in there for like a day. And then the second time I almost drowned when I was in Florida. I was a little like toddler and I had walked out into the water. Nobody was watching me. And I went off of a sandbar, which is a drop. And I just remember I could picture it in my mind right now, which was my head was going up above the water and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And this last time I went down, I was down for like 10 seconds and I had inhaled a bunch of water. And I just remember getting pulled up by my hair. Third time, I almost got shot in the head, and then fourth time, I was hit by a jet ski and almost killed.
What the fuck? How were you nearly shot in the head? Was this a robbery?
No, me and my buddy.
Or was it an accident?
It was almost an accident. Yeah, me and my buddy were out hunting, and we were out all night, didn't see a single thing, and then on the drive through the field back in the minivan, we saw a raccoon. So I had a shotgun and my buddy had an AR, and he slides the back minivan. You know how that door slides open? And
yeah, like the A-Team.
yeah, pops out. Didn't have a seatbelt on, just pops out of the car and like literally walking, like getting ready to shoot the thing as it's running. And I didn't think he could get out of the car that fast, and I just ran after the raccoon. And as I ran, the back of his gun barrel went right behind my head. And like I don't know what it was, but I stopped and I turned around and I looked at him. I was like, "Did you almost just pull the trigger?" And he literally was shaking, put his rifle down, and like, I mean, I think we drove in silence for like took us 30 minutes.
Fucking
yeah, it took us
hell.
30 minutes to get to a gas station. As soon as we roll up to the gas station, I'm eating I go and get a sub and come back to the car. He starts punching me like just over and over again as hard as he can. Because he was like, I mean, he was about to cry because he had his finger like right on the trigger. And I just sensed
Yeah,
it.
he was angry.
Yeah. And I sensed it when I ran past. I was like, did you almost just like pull that thing? And he's like, yeah.
How old were you then?
Ooh, I was probably 17.
Oh my gosh.
I must have been senior year of high school when that happened. That's why sometimes I pinch myself to make sure that I'm not just in like a false dream. I actually died that day.
And what was the jet ski?
Oh, when I was a senior in high school, I was a jet ski guide for many years, and a guy had hit me going 60 miles an hour and went up me like a ramp. And the jet ski hit me in the chest, and I cartwheeled and broke fiberglass on the side of my jet ski with my head. And I had to go to I was fine. I went to the hospital and everything. And the guy was like, yeah, if you were sitting down, that jet ski would have hit you right in the face and you would not be here. But guides have to stand up. So the jet ski, I took all the force to my chest. And
oh my
damn, I'm doing all the talking this episode. You got to have a near death now.
That's like, oh, don't wish it on me, man.
I mean, just tell me a near death experience.
I think the thing is, the reason you haven't had a near death experience is I would, this is my rough characterization. I'm not an expert in these sorts of matters, but they sound like near misses. You've had near miss experiences where
it's been fucking painful. I can tell you that much.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yes. The way I understand it from the people we've talked to get the full near death experience, you've literally most people have actually died. They've died and been resuscitated, or they've hit that point where the physical damage has been enough that there's been a flood, possibly of DMT from the pineal gland, which has created the near-death experience, and then they've been revived. Whereas, so like the gun example, that's not a near-death experience because it's just a near miss. If it had pulled the trigger and hit you in the head, and then you somehow recovered, then
Abe
maybe
Lincoln
you would have had the. And what's the other guy? The guy who kept shooting his mates, the politician, Dick Cheney.
Oh yeah,
Was it Dick Cheney?
He shot a man in the face hunting quail, which is a foot tall. You gotta kick that fucker in the air and then shoot him.
Is he still going, Dick Cheney?
I don't know. He's had a heart transplant.
I know he doesn't have a heart. Yeah, they put a mechanical heart in him, which says a lot.
He'll be around forever. He's like Palpatine from Star Wars.
We had a guy, I don't know if I've ever told you about Ian Lyons, who came on our show a couple of years ago. The parachute jumper. Have I told you this story? No, he was a parachute jumper in the army, and he was like an instructor. He was like a really experienced parachutist, and he instructed the regular army folks how to do parachute jumping. And he also took part in these military games. So they hold these military games every few years in different countries. I think there was one in Canada just before COVID hit. Military games exercise where, you know, all the countries, all these different countries send like it's like the Olympics, but for guns and armies and shit. And he used to do that. He used to compete in military games, represent the United Kingdom as a parachutist. So like top of his game. And I think it was some sort of display he was doing in the UK, like a parachute display with his team. And it was a display jump. It'd be one of these where you got to like land on an X in the middle of the crowd, or maybe they have smoke. Some of them you see them with smoke canisters coming off them as they're parachuting and whatnot. And he was coming in to land, and about 100 feet, or just over 100 feet up, his chute failed, and he just fell like a stone to the ground. And he told us the whole story on our show, oh Christ, a couple of hundred episodes ago. And he said, as far as I remember, as far as people who were there, they said that there was mixed reports, right? Some people said that he never lost consciousness, and some people who were there said he lost consciousness briefly. But he describes having this life review where he went through his entire life from childhood through to that day. And he said it lasted 10 years. It felt to me that it took 10 years to do the life review.
Damn, it's like salvia.
Yeah. And the people who were there were saying, well, you lost consciousness maybe for 10 seconds. And he shattered his femurs. He was in a wheelchair for, I think, 6 months, maybe 12 months recovery. And now he does ultra marathon cycling. So he does these mad cycle races where they ride for like hundreds of miles in one go. But he was wild, and it got him interested in things like DMT. He started doing research into things like DMT and
why people
psychology and whatnot.
That's why people take salvia, because that one of the best drug stories you could possibly ever hear. And if you look up the guy's name, my show pops up because he was on my show, and I heard him from someone else's. I really recommend the other show. It's Ryan Sickler, the comedian from Baltimore, his podcast called The Crab Feast. But they had his name's Steve Cantwell. So he took salvia in Texas in a gun room, where with this one guy, he took it, smoked it out of like a gravity bong. It was 10 times salvia. So he took like a pure concentrated effort of it. This guy sunk into the floor. And as he sunk into the floor in real life, he's getting pulled up on a boat out of the water and dropped onto a dock, and he's jet skiing with these people he's never met before, but they're all like, "Are you okay, man? You just went underwater for a long time." And they take him to the doctor and everything. He's opening up drawers, and there's writing on the prescription pads, and he's going, "Man, this salvia is some strong shit. I'm in this drug trip right now." He knows it's a drug trip. And he spent 8 years in this drug trip. That's what it felt like to him. He literally went home thinking, "Oh, I'll just go to sleep and, I'll wake up and I'll be back in Texas at this gun room thing." There's photos of him and his friends that he's never met before that apparently have known him for years. He goes back to his work. He works at an apple farm or an apple orchard, and everyone's
That's not
like,
his real job.
the doctor goes, "No, it's not his real job." The doctor goes, "Oh, the doctor literally goes, "Oh, he has short-term amnesia and we don't know when it's going to be back. So just, be very careful with him." So when he goes back to work, everyone's going like, "We're so happy that, you came back to work and everything." He got a raise in his trip. He upgraded his cable package in his trip because he goes, "By the fourth year, I didn't know if maybe that was the trip and this was reality."
Oh my
And he had
god.
kids, man. So he goes, "I'm never going to see my kids again. Maybe that was all a dream and now this is the reality." So he just started living his life. But the issue was he refused to live it until 4 years in, where he starts going, "This is all going to be over. This is all fake." And then 4 years in, he starts actually hanging out with those friends in the trip and everything like that. And literally, he worked at a mink farm, which, if you know what mink are, little things. And
Ferrety things,
he
yeah.
worked at a farm that would basically kill these mink, and the I guess I forgot what it was. They had to kill a certain amount a day, and because it was like population control thing, and he found a way to do it faster by electrocuting them, by getting them all at once in a truck and getting them all electrocuted. Well, it turns out what he thought were dead mink, they were really asleep, and the mink overran the farm and repopulated, and they lost the farm. This family lost their farm because he didn't do his job properly. So that the guy who was in charge to that family was one of the people that put him up on the dock when they were water skiing, and he never talked to him again. So he lost his best friend in the trip. And dude, he goes so in detail with it all on my show, and he does it on the other one too. But he after when it hits the eighth year, he's walking to a barbecue with his friends. He's got like a tray of food and everything. Like I said, I'm giving you a short down version. He's got the better version. They're all like waving at him to come over, and he sinks into the floor, wakes back up in the gun room, and it's his actual wife, and his kids all around him. It's Christmas Day too. He chose to do it on Christmas Day, and they're shaking him. And he's like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "What's happening? What's happening?" Like, "You just had a seizure." And he's like, "How long was I gone for?" They said 45 seconds.
Fucking hell.
So he starts crying. He had piss and like shit himself. And his wife's cleaning him off and everything. And but look, before that even happens, he looks to the guy he's with.
Happy
Yeah,
Christmas.
he literally looks to the guy that he's with, and he goes, "Don't smoke that." And the guy goes, "No fucking problem," and puts the bong down because he's like, "I just saw you seizure out for 45 seconds after doing it." And yeah, he explained everything to everybody. He goes, he was in a cover band in his trip. Listen, his background is he's a Mormon. He like that was his upbringing, was he was a Mormon for all these years and everything. And I'm like I said, I'm friends with him on Facebook, so this is all 100% legit. And he didn't know any Queen songs, didn't know anything like that, but he starts telling people, "I learned Queen in the cover band in the trip I was in," and they were all saying, "This sounds like a bunch of bullshit. I think you might have just that seizure might have really hit you." And he goes, "No," and he literally grabs a piano and starts playing the piano exactly of the songs he learned in his trip. And they're like, "Where did you learn how to do that? You've never touched a piano before."
He
So
never played piano
he
before.
learned it in the trip.
In 45 seconds.
No, in 8 years that he was in that trip.
No, but in our reality, he was out for 45 seconds.
Yeah, but that's salvia.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy. Look up if you want to get like that's what I'm interested in now is looking up people's salvia experiences because I watched videos of people smoking it and everything like that, and they just literally they're gone 30 seconds. A dude filmed it and put it on YouTube, and he was gone 30 seconds. But he wakes up and he's talking about like a whole story in his head. Like, and I've had dreams whenever I dream, it's like that. I feel like I'm gone for 8 years, but I'll only be asleep 2 hours. And I don't know what happens with it, but one dude spent 20 years as paint on a barn. Just paint on a barn.
That's terrifying.
I know, but it's so fascinating to me.
It is fascinating because you think, wow, what if we could tap into this in a more controlled way?
Get me on my deathbed, give me all the salvia in the world. I'm gonna make that shit last forever.
Well, that's one way. But I mean, like, you can knock yourself out for 30 seconds and come back learning a new language
Yeah,
or learning how to play the piano
foreign accent
or
syndrome.
learning everything about. Yeah, yeah. That's mental. We're only just scratching the surface of what these brains can do,
That's why
what they're capable
that's why
of.
we're using artificial technology to enhance that faster instead of it happening on like random happenstances. It's going to be just technology is going to create it. But those drug trip stuff, like that's why like salvia is legal too. That's the craziest thing.
Still, I
Yeah,
thought they'd made it
no,
illegal.
it's
It's
legal.
legal in the States, is it?
Yeah, you can get it online.
Wow. Gosh. No, I'm going to stay clear. It kind of scares me.
No shit. Imagine spending 8 years in a whole other life. He literally looked up, like he's never been to that part that he was in that trip. He looked up the addresses and phone numbers that he remembered from the trip, and none of them existed.
He just fabricated them.
His mind did, but his mind got so it's like I that imagines like what is like someone in a coma. Maybe that's what it's like. You think you're actually, but dude, that's scary as crap. He goes, yeah, by the fourth year, I started realizing that maybe this is my life, and I had just been mentally messed up for all this time. So his kids that he basically, I think his kids were 7 and 6 at the time. And he goes, I thought those were all, I just made those up. And then next thing you know, like you're questioning reality. And that's what like makes you think about schizophrenics, where like their whole reality is just messed up. It's like it makes you understand them a little bit more.
Did he have any long lasting effects or damage? Is he okay?
Besides, he's still in a cover band to this day.
Wow. Well, that's good. That's a good. I'm glad
He doesn't
that he
sing
didn't.
like Freddie Mercury, but he can sure hell hit those notes.
Wow. I want to talk to. I want to get this guy on our podcast.
Yeah, reach out to him. I'll message him on Facebook and say I haven't talked to him in a long time. I was going to have him back on to explain it again because it's been, I think it was episode 428 of mine, so 1,000 episodes ago. So like it would be nice to just talk to. Actually, it's more than that. It's like 1,100 episodes ago. Um, but it would be nice to talk to him again just to hear the trip experience because it's so like I don't know. There's very few people I've heard stories from, and the stories I have heard, like the ex-CIA agent I had on my show, everything he bragged about or he talked about was in such detail and it wasn't a brag at all. It was like low level shit that you're like, why would you not go for gold if you're going to make it up? And then you look up like his Law Justica profile where he spent 35 years locked away and they never explained why he was locked away. So it's like you hear something like that and that's where it's like I don't know. Some people's like life, like it just randomly drops in your lap, and that's what's interesting to me is that how all this works out.
Yeah. Excellent. Hey, Robbie, I know you're really ill.
No,
I
I'm
don't know
feeling
how
great
long you
now.
want to
We're
go
talking
for.
now. Let's keep going.
All right. Because I said, if you wanted to just do a short one,
No, this
because
is fun. Keep going.
you've damaged yourself. You've damaged yourself with alcohol.
I feel
You're a
okay.
slow learner like me.
I should have took
You're okay.
salvia and just had a better experience. Why do we even travel? That's the main thing. Why do we travel if we can just hit salvia and go to like Hawaii for? Oh, you can't really plan it though.
That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. It's uncontrolled, isn't it? If there was a way to harness it and sort of control the experience, put limits on it somehow, if they could isolate that compound and I don't know. Maybe I don't know if is it the dosage? Is it the size of the dosage that affects like the wildness of the trip? I don't know anything about salvia.
From what I've seen, like a lot of the trips, it has to be like a pure concentrate. Like salvia, normally by itself, I think the way that they legally do it, it's not going to do anything for you. But like Ari Shafir, if you know who that comedian is, he did 6 times concentrate and he was a shark underwater for like 2 years. So he just got to live as a shark. So it's like, I mean, it's like Quaaludes. Quaaludes were originally invented to help people sleep. And then they found out that after 35 minutes, if you delayed those effects of going to sleep, if you just stayed up for 35 minutes, you have the worst hallucinations possible. And it's so bad to the point where the government had to ban it. It's in Wolf of Wall Street when the dude's taking those pills and he's like a baby crawling on the floor.
We never had them. I don't think in the UK Quaaludes. I only know the name from like pop culture references, like you mentioned, like Wolf of Wall Street and like Simpsons will talk about Quaaludes or whatever. Or who's the guy, that comedian who was faffing around with women. Cosby wasn't Cosby into
No,
Quaaludes?
he was
Bill
into
Cosby.
roofies.
Roofies. That's different. That's a different thing,
That's
is
a
it?
date rape drug.
Right. I thought Quaaludes were as well.
No, Quaaludes are what they sold to housewives to make them go to bed.
Oh wow!
That's what it
Is
was
it right? I
marketed
wonder if
for.
it's like. I wonder if it's like Valium then, because there was a big thing in the '60s. There's a Rolling Stones song called "Mother's." I think is it called "Mother's Little Helper," and it was written about Valium, the drug Valium that all the housewives used to take in the '60s to sort of calm the nerves and relax them.
Yeah, Eminem raps about his mom giving him Valium.
Does he? I think House, that Hugh Laurie show, wasn't he on something like Valium as well? No, Vicodin. That was Vicodin, wasn't it?
Would you rather live in a drug? Have you ever taken drugs before?
Yeah.
Would you rather live in like that drug trip kind of what I wouldn't say it's like having glasses on, but a lot of people choose to medicate. We all use stimulants. I mean, everyone, whether it's caffeine, whether it's nicotine, whether it's whatever, there's just some that give you a really good effect to it. To them, it makes them seem like reality is better with this. So, like, I don't blame people for taking it, but there's a lot of people that just don't want to go back to normal. That to them, this is the new normal.
Yeah, I think it's very dangerous using psychedelic compounds as for recreational use. I wouldn't advise that. I think it should be sort of quite a solemn, sort of spiritual, guided affair where maybe you go in with certain intentions, and it's more of a sort of an exploratory, like a self exploration of your psyche, your consciousness. And yeah, I think that's the danger is when because this is how most of us start. We do it recreationally. We do it for shits and giggles on a Saturday night, something at a party, and it's not the right setting to be doing or the circumstances to be doing that sort of thing. And that's probably what leads to people, because life's hard for a lot of us. Life is tough, and so people, like you say, people self-medicate. A lot of alcohol's the biggest one in our country. Alcoholism is a massive problem, even though it's completely legal and you can buy as much of it as you want. But the amount of damage it causes for people who just want to sort of escape reality, they just want to numb, they want to sort of numb the experience, and alcohol helps them get through it. But it's just so dangerous, isn't it? Well, you mentioned Amy Winehouse. I think it was the alcohol that killed her rather than any drugs or
barbiturates in her
prescription
system.
drugs.
She mixed the
Yeah,
two.
what,
You're not
what
supposed to do.
Well, the way I'd heard it was that she was a reformed alcoholic. So she used to, when she was an alcoholic, she would drink X amount of bottles of vodka a day or whatever. And she quit and got clean and then went on a binge. And that's why she died, because she tried to drink what she would normally have been able to tolerate. And because her tolerance level had been reset to like a normal you or me, that's why she died. But I don't know the full story. That's probably just something I read online.
That's weird with celebrity deaths. There's always some type of weird conspiracy or like there's one about Matthew Perry going on right now
Yeah,
because
big one last week. Yeah,
yeah, and there's talking about that he was putting up random posts on the internet or Twitter or whatever, and he was kind of having this what seemed like he was going to commit suicide. And I'm like, I don't know if it was that. I mean, we knew he battled with alcoholism. He openly talked about that. I mean, maybe he just went off the wagon on it.
and prescription drugs. I think he's had problems with, and cocaine. In fact, all sorts of things. He was into cocaine for
Yeah.
a long period while he was on Friends, wasn't he?
Well, we forget that because we just look at them as like our favorite TV stars on our favorite sitcoms. And back then, you got to think how much money they were making in an episode. And, everything's
$1 million.
well, everything's so readily accessible to get too. Well, I think that had to be Jennifer Aniston was making the most on that show. And she's the one that actually went off into like her own stardom in a sense. But everybody was making bank from that show and they were just blowing it on dumb shit. It's like, yeah, because we look at them as like they were supposed to be in their 20s in the show. But if you look at what their actual age was, they were in their 30s and they're making, I don't know, it's around the 80s or 90s when that's all going on. No, it's a little before that, right? It's had to be 80s.
No, no, it wasn't the 80s. It was mid 90s, I would say. 95, 94, 95 when it came out.
Well, that's before like everything started getting like super illegal or non I don't wouldn't say hard to get, but cocaine was still big in like the mid '90s.
Yeah, it still is now, I'm sure.
Not so much over
Yeah, I'm
here.
sure. But once you're given that sort of level of wealth and fame, it's very difficult. It's like it always amazes me how how normal Justin Bieber is. And I know he's pretty messed up, but I mean, if it was me, if I was at that tender age, given that level of wealth and fame, I probably wouldn't be alive. I'd have gone completely off the rails. Whereas he seems, he's a bit nuts, but I think he's coping really well with it.
Miley
I'd
Cyrus up there too. As much as she had her little spats and everything like that, it's like you got to think of being a kid celebrity and all this pressure's on you, and you grow up in that world. Most of the Disney stars from back in the day, or anybody that's on those old television shit. I mean, one of my favorite shows, Drake and Josh. Josh is on social media way too much, and Drake was in jail for basically hooking up with an underage girl. Like there's a bunch of stuff, and then like the one girl, Jeanette McCurdy, that was on uh was it Harvey Weinstein was the guy? He was the one that was like grooming these kids and trying to get them to do like crazy stuff. Like he had a foot fetish. If you look at the old iCarly footage, how many times they show their feet, someone chopped it up. Dude, it's an insane amount. And he's just filming these kids sticking like their feet in mashed potatoes. And that was his kick. That was his thing he got off to. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's the industry. And the weird part is the number of people after all the sexual scandal shit came out that were thanking him for how their careers have just grown and turned into something. And Quentin Tarantino worked with him.
There's a famous clip, is it? Oh, it's at the Oscars. I don't know if it's Meryl Streep.
This show got fucking dark quick.
Or Judi Dench.
She started off with bull insemination, and now we're here, fucking child horrible abuses.
There's something in my head that says Dame Judi Dench, who played M.
Fucked up, man.
She played M in the James Bond film. I'm sure she has a Harvey Weinstein tattoo on her arse.
Why not?
Yeah, what a creep. I mean, he's never getting out, I don't think, is he?
The only people that have
he's in jail, isn't he?
I think so. The only people that I think he's in prison, because he got COVID twice in prison, and they wouldn't let him have his favorite candy or anything like that. So they were just making him rot.
Good.
He wanted like Twizzlers or something, and then they were like, no, and they just like, I think he's gotten like COVID twice, and he's gotten like, he looks bloated. He's in a bad spot.
Oh well, I struggle to have any sympathy for him.
He looks like Uncle Fester from Addams Family.
He looks worse.
Yeah, his eyes got all the black underpart to it, like he hasn't slept in a year.
Yeah. Hey, Kevin Spacey got away with it all, though, didn't he?
Yeah, didn't he end up getting caught in the UK or something doing the same thing?
Yeah, but I think everything's been dropped. I know that I think there was at least one witness who mysteriously died. But yeah, I think all the charges have been dropped now, and he's back on the scene.
God, to have the money like those people do to be able to just get rid of your competitors. I mean, how is Hillary Clinton not being charged on something?
Oh yeah, she's too big to fail.
I think one of the deaths on her list was a guy who hung himself upside down, and then shot himself with a shotgun
to the chest.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been a few like that, hasn't there?
Ruled as a suicide.
But yeah, don't look over there. Look at these jangling keys instead.
Okay.
Oh, The Apprentice.
Give me salvia. I'll be more than happy to trip out while you just do whatever you want.
Yeah. Did you see that video of Gavin Newsom last week playing basketball?
I think I watched it on your show.
All right, yeah. Is he going to be the next president?
I don't know. I think RFK Jr.'s got a pretty good shot.
Really? Do you think they'll let him anywhere near?
He put up a video recently calling out Biden for the not giving him Secret Service protection. And it kind of lined up the number of people that were presidential running and could be the next president. And it was like the number of people that were given. So Obama got it 2 years before he was even in office. So it just kind of really showed kind of the layers in our government system a little bit. The whole purpose of anything about understanding historical subjects or what you would call a conspiracy thing is there's a large disconnect from people And when they do finally get passionate about it, it's about having them act on it. Like the JFK 60th anniversary is coming up here in like the next 18 days from when we're recording this. So it's like, how do we get people to not just be like, oh, I'm going to post something up about JFK, but actually care about researching and understanding the facts of the case, which I've been trying to do. And it's not easy, but we can create a community that people can understand it and want to give a shit. It's been 60 years. People deserve like some answers. There's still documents being hidden.
What do you mean answers? You already have all the answers. Did you not read the Warren report?
Which one?
God.
Because the volumes don't match the report. I actually got interested in this. I didn't know some things that are like, it's my episode that I posted when we were recording this with Rich. I had to have them because we made clips for YouTube and I had to have him back on to talk about it. But it was about the stuff that like once you get friends with a lot of these guys like I am, they're more than happy to unload the conspiracy stuff to you, the really, really out there fringe stuff. There was a person that might have been shot in Dealey Plaza the same day as JFK.
Okay.
Yeah, I have photos of it. You can look it up online too. There's a bunch of people standing around a giant blood circle next to the knoll. It's just and what the official story said was it was a red snow cone that dropped on the floor. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, of course.
And in the
A red
26
snow
the
cone.
26 volumes of the Warren Commission, you get down to the very bottom. Her testimony's buried in there. One of the people at Parkland Hospital who was a front desk as a nurse checked in someone that was brought in with a gunshot wound from Dealey Plaza by two people in black suits. So there was
Holy
someone
shit.
that means extra shots. So that's the thing too. Like Buddy Walters, there's a famous photograph of a person who's unidentified to this day. But Buddy Walters is bending down in the grass and pointing because there was a fragment of a what they called a bullet, a little metallic object in the photo. You can see the photo. I actually put it on my TikTok and I put it on my YouTube. So if you go to my YouTube, you can be able to see the whole thing. But it's a random guy comes up, grabs it and puts it in his pocket and walks off. And you literally, Jim Murray was the guy taking the photos. You see the photos of this guy just walking up, picking up the bullet, putting it in a pocket and walking away. And the one cop that was there, Buddy Walters, was, you see his head turned looking at the guy like, that guy just put up a bullet and put it in his pocket. And there's probably 4 or 5 different bullets that are unaccounted for. A couple that were in the limousine that were probably taken out and it was never submitted into evidence. And then there was 2 found in grass that was never submitted, but we have the testimonies of those people. The issue is that not the Warren Commission, the HSCA, the second investigation that proved a probable conspiracy, they said something about it. If you look in their report, it says allegations of a Secret Service agent on the knoll flashing a badge, which multiple people said there was a person doing that, but the Secret Service said there was nobody up there. They looked into it, but then it just goes inconclusive evidence to support that there was anything substantial. And I go, that's when you know that there was something that didn't fit a conclusion, because it's like when they shoot down a UAP. Couldn't retrieve it. I was like, bullshit, shut the hell up. Yeah, you damn right. You guys moved heaven and earth to get to that thing. For God's sakes, you'll relocate a Native American family to the pits of Ecuador, all because you want the damn land to build a Four Seasons. And you know what? Go to the rainforest, slash and burn it. I'm okay with that. Just build a hotel. I'm kidding.
It's so murky, the whole JFK thing. I just, it's like, where do you start with it all? It's like, it's that rabbit. It's one of those rabbit holes where I feel like if I get started on it, I'll just get lost in it, and I'll never have time to look at anything else again because there's so much to go at. I don't know how well I'll stand
Been
on
in
it.
it for 2 years.
My position is there is definite fuckery. Just from a layman's position, I haven't done 1% of the research you have on it.
Do you have questions? I'll answer some questions. I'm a lot more knowledgeable than the last time we actually talked about JFK. I could doing those YouTube shorts, like I said, I would clip 1 minute because that's as much as YouTube does. It's 60 seconds, but I have all these people come on, give me all these things in 60-second points. And now I have to dig through the documentation to find out what they're saying. So I can tell you the accurate 100%, no bullshit, no conspiracy. This is what is documentedly proven. If you have a question, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer it.
Wow. I'll tell you what interests me. Like, What about the actual bullets themselves? Because like Oswald was meant to use like a rifle, wasn't it? Was it a bolt action rifle or
A
something?
Manly car cano from the sixth floor school book depository building, but there's also suspicions that there could possibly be two rifles up there because the original detectives that caught the rifle called it a 7.65 Mauser, as so stamped on the barrel. That's the official word in the commission's report. But then that rifle changes to a Manly Carcano, and you see the video of the guy walking through the book depository building. And the one suspicion thing about that is the Warren Commission and no detective, police, anything like that accounted or wrote down a report in their inventory logs about the rifle clip. The Warren Commission never talks about it. And it's one of the things that would prove that that rifle was not fired because in the photos, it shows a clip. When if Oswald had, I think he brought four bullets with him. Three were fired at the president because they had a picture of three rifle things scattered on the ground, and one was so bent it couldn't have fired. But the rifle clip, when after all the shots are fired, shoots out of the gun. It comes out. Now, when CBS did to recreate the shots, they set it all up and filmed it to show that it could be possible to shoot a target like how Oswald did. The rifle clip and every single one was shooting out. The only way it doesn't come out is if it's jammed. And if you look at the rifle clip in the photo, it's jammed, and they're when they're showing it because it's still in the rifle, all the ends of it are split out. So that means that rifle couldn't have been fired because it wouldn't fire if it jammed.
Was is that not the bent bullet though? If the last bullet was the bent one, that could that not have jammed it?
That's what they say, but it's the issue is that rifle was in such crappy condition. The scope wasn't lined up perfectly. When they recreated the test to it, the guy had to put shims in the actual scope to be able to fire it. Everyone who fired the rifle, I think the number of tests that they did with expertly trained marksmen, by the way. That's what they used, expert marksmen. Everyone got, I think maybe they got one bullet hit the target, but all of them were so far off. They had to do it multiple times. And you got to remember, they had as much time as they wanted. Oswald didn't have as much time as he wanted with the car moving. And they had to literally come up to the conclusion that the rifle was shot and then reloaded in 5.5 seconds, or no, 7.5 seconds. So when they say that, that means you have to shoot with your target, line it up in the crosshairs, shoot, reload, cock the gun back, do that, re-aim while the car's moving, shoot again, do that. And he had to do it in this estimated time. And the Warren Commission had skimmed it down to a certain, which would make sense. But people called and said there's no way, like gun manufacturers said that there's no way that gun could have shot that. Because originally it was 2 to 3 seconds. And then they try to recreate it. There's no way. So then they move the time up a little bit. All the rifle tests are just garbage. They don't make sense. And like I said, I don't even fight the side that Oswald's innocent or not. I just think there's a lot of support to show that the rifle that you see the backyard photographs where he's like this, he's holding communist newspapers in one hand, he's holding the rifle in the other hand, he's holding a pistol on his hip. Like these are all three things that get mentioned in the case. One, to paint him as a communist. One, to say that he shot from the building because there's a rifle, and the pistol that killed the police officer that day as well too.
Oh, the police officer.
You don't know about that?
So was that in? No, was that in the book depository? Where did he die?
So when Oswald left the book depository building, he went to back to his boarding house, allegedly grabbed a gun, and then went on his way to the Texas theater where he was finally caught. He allegedly killed a cop named Officer Tippett. Now, when he's being arrested, and it's in the police affidavits, all the ones that the arresting officers took for him, like when they arrested him, they said that he was only being charged for killing a cop. When they asked why did he kill the president, he says, I'm not being charged for that. That's on footage. They never. So when we say Oswald was the alleged assassin, which you'll see more articles saying that now, is because he was never being charged for killing a police officer. He's being charged for killing a police officer. Well, no, he's being charged for killing a police officer, not the president. But the issue is that nobody talks about. He goes to a theater, right? Why do you kill a cop and then go that? And people think, well, he was going in there because the theater's dark and no one would find him. But he paid for a ticket. There were two people in the theater arrested, and both of them had the same exact appearance, Oswald and someone that looked like Oswald. If you read the police their actual arrest records of the theater for the cops that were there, people are all screaming, "I got him. He's down here on the main floor." Well, one dude arrested a guy in the balcony, and that guy did a news broadcast. You see him because on the news broadcast, when he's talking about the arrest, he has crutches behind him because he twisted his foot in the rows of seats. And one guy that for 30 years, I think he didn't find out until way later when the actual photos of Oswald being arrested, they bring him out the front of the theater. He goes, his statement, his testimony says he saw Oswald getting arrested in the alleyway. They brought him out the alley and arrested a guy there. That was the second Oswald. The guy that they arrested, that was not the one that they were looking for. So like that's what they think, that the person that they arrested in the balcony, the one that wasn't Oswald, was the one that didn't pay for a ticket and just went into the theater. So somehow they grabbed this Oswald. And then if you read the testimony, the whole theory is that Oswald had half a cardboard box top in his pocket. That's in the Dallas police inventory list of things they got on his person. There's the gun, there's a notebook, there's a cardboard box top. I have it clipped on my YouTube. You can see it to see I'm not bullshitting with you. And the theory was that that's how spies meet. Spies go to theaters and they have this half a box top and they sit next to someone in the theater and hold up the box top, and then you complete the other half and that's your contact. So that's the thing, that was the theory. Well, I found it in their when they interviewed the people in the theater and they took statements from them. One of the persons says he was sitting next to random people in the theater. He kept getting up and sitting next to random people. So that's the proof that he's an intelligence it's a Cold War tactic. And that's the issue is like finding all this. There was just leads that weren't pursued. I mean, when they interrogated him, they could have easily grabbed someone's camera from out in the hallway, a recording device, and recorded the whole thing, but we're using notes to figure out what was said. And that's when you get into Dallas police corruption, where Roger Craig, who saw a man run into a rambler who looked exactly like Oswald. In fact, when they brought him into the interrogation room, he identified Oswald as that guy that ran into the station wagon. And he's one of 6 people that saw that happen. And that doesn't fit the narrative. So they said Roger Craig is a liar. He was never in that interrogation room. Well, we have photos of him there. So it's like he obviously is being truthful, but then he dies in a mysterious way. He died of a suicide with a rifle. So he shot himself holding up a rifle like this and bled to death. And it was like he had a revolver on his dresser. Why didn't you just stick it in his mouth? But that was never pursued either.
All that just points towards it being a CIA job, and that Oswald was the patsy working with the CIA.
You want to know what I think?
To me. Yeah.
So everyone says Oswald was an intelligence person. I think he was CIA and then he went to be FBI. And the reason why I can prove that is Oswald goes to Russia to defect, right? Tear up his U.S. citizenship, throws it down on the embassy table saying, I want to renounce my citizenship. The loan department paid for his way back to America. So Oswald was a part of the U2 program, which was how he went to Atsugi. It's how he got a venereal disease in the line of duty. That document is just weird as hell. He was a part of a special U2 program that when he went to Russia and said that he gave up state secrets, the U2 was shot down 6 months later. That was Gary Powers' U2. That U2 was untouchable. You couldn't, the Russian government could not get the U2. It was basically untouchable.
Too high altitude.
Well, untouchable in the sky. Well, if he sold secrets, they think the plane shot down 6 months later or a couple months later. I mean, he might have actually gave some secrets away, but he was a part of that special program. So the loan department decided, and it's in their own documentation, they decided to pay for his way back because they're afraid he was going to cause a national incident. So he was one of 2 defectors that came back to the United States at the same time. One was Robert Webster. Now, Robert Webster, if you look his name up, he was interviewed. Everyone, press, everybody was all around him, taking photos, saying, why did you go to another country and defect and do all this type of stuff? Well, Oswald wasn't interviewed by any press members. They didn't care about Oswald. But one guy did interview him in his car for 2 hours, and his name's John Fain. Now, in John Fain's Warren Commission testimony, the official narrative, he literally says Oswald was not a violent person at all. He seemed like he was a good kid, didn't want to do anything wrong. He was just happy to be back here, and he was worried about getting his wife's U.S. citizenship. The John Fain stated he's an FBI agent. He goes, we were only worried about his wife because his wife had ties to the KGB, which she did. And that's the documentation we got from Russia when they released their files with our files. She was a swallow, which is uh, a woman prostitute meant to pick up guys, come back to the States, and then send messages to the KGB. Well, she had six, or not six, maybe five lovers before Oswald that only lasted a couple weeks, and they all fit the same profile as Oswald, a Caucasian male from the United States coming over to go to tear up their U.S. citizenship. So in the testimony, he said, he goes, I closed the investigation. They go, why'd you close the investigation if Oswald was violent? Well, he didn't seem violent to me, and he said he wasn't violent. He was just worried about getting his wife U.S. citizenship. I wouldn't have closed the investigation if I would have thought he was violent. And so when he closed the investigation fully, saying that Oswald didn't seem like a communist or anything like that, which is what he was concerned about, he asked him if he could, you know, let us know about his wife. If his wife sends any messages away, could you let us know about it? That's where I think he became an FBI informant. And if you look, yeah, on his own wife to see, feed us tips or anything like that. And that's how it would explain him paying back the money so quickly. Because before, you got to think an unemployed guy with a baby, wife, living in a home, trying to find a job, he's paying back $5, $10 on this $500 loan that he took out, which is like $1,600 today. And then he starts going $200, $100, $150, and then the loan's paid off in like 3 weeks. And I think that's when he came back, the FBI informant, they were paying him because they would pay people $200 a week to give them information and things of that sort. So that's my theory, is that he became an FBI informant then. And that's when you start seeing these operations, which is like COINTELPRO, if you know what that is.
Yeah, I've heard it.
And
I've heard of
it's
it, yeah.
people say it's invading the Black Panther Party. It was really the FBI's way of breaking into radical groups, making them more radicalized to where they turn on each other. And that's where you get Oswald going down in New Orleans to hand out fair play for Cuba papers. He's doing it in broad daylight in a town that is largely right wing. So you're doing,
yeah, it's inflammatory,
you're
purposely inflammatory.
And he gets into a fight on the street and gets locked up. And the first thing he says when he gets locked up is, I would like to speak to FBI agent, and then names the guy. And that guy comes and releases him. So
yeah, an agent. So he's an agent provocateur.
Yeah, so that's the whole thing with Oswald, in my opinion. That's what I've seen so far by looking through testimonies and things, and I think that's what you'll probably see more of, is him. I think that
how does that lead to him shooting at the president though?
I think he was set up, to be honest with you. I don't think he did that on purpose. I think that he was set up. He worked at that building. He couldn't control the route change of that. The route was changed last minute. Remember, it went by the book depository building. So if it was to stage him, that's why he said he was a patsy. So,
and that's why he was bumped off shortly afterwards
by Jack Ruby.
Yeah,
it's crazy stuff, man.
Makes sense.
It's like maniacal, but it's like, if you look at Jim Jones was getting drugs from the CIA to fund his little Jonestown cult. They knew about him. They had plenty of files about him. And that's Leo Ryan's death, the guy who was shot on the tarmac. His main thing was working for the Church Committee, exposing covert and paramilitary operations that these intelligence agencies were doing. So that's you start seeing all these weird connections. It's kind of like creating a monster. So you have a witch hunt, and then people need you to save them. And that's what Manson was like, right? Manson was a whole thing that was he was getting let off by higher authority whenever he would get locked up and all this type of stuff. It's who was that person that was doing that?
Some people call it the 6-week cycle. So there's this theory that I think it's the FBI, that it runs on this sort of 6-week cycle. Every 6 weeks, you'll see a news story about how the FBI has prevented some sort of incident, or they've done something really useful here, or they've massive drugs bust here, or cartel victory over there. And they call it the 6-week cycle. And it's to justify their own funding and their own existence more than anything else. It's an industry.
You should check out on my YouTube shorts on this, because I had with the Warren Commission, J. Edgar Hoover, It's in the Warren Commission documents. They stated it. It's right there if you go in the National Archives. So it's not like it's a conspiracy. It's fact. It's in the old school Senate investigations report. It literally says Hoover considered the Warren Commission its adversary. You know, the FBI withheld so much information from the Warren Commission, and so did the CIA. Now, Alan Dulles is head of the CIA. He was fired by Kennedy after the Bay of Pigs, and then he was hired by Johnson to investigate Kennedy's death. So, like the fox investigating the chicken coop. Well, Hoover appointed Gerald Ford to the Warren Commission, and Gerald Ford reported back to Hoover letters and messages about dissent on the Warren Commission staff, people that did not agree with the way the Warren Commission was going. So Ford is the guy who moved up Kennedy's back wound from back here up 6 inches to the back of the neck. And his literal official statement, when they asked him why he did that, he said, so it's more accurate. It's like, wait, you moved up a guy's back wound to the back of his neck. And those photos weren't released until way later. So 10 years later, when they did the second investigation, they go, why the hell did this go up 6 inches?
Yeah, it's just fuckery, isn't it?
It's
constantly
it's smart
fucking
politics
around.
is what it is. It makes you realize that these agencies only cared about their credibility. The only reason why Ford was on that commission was because Hoover suspected Alan Dulles was going to try and blame the FBI for the certain things. And that's what we got to think. These investigations were investigating these agencies as well, too. So if you are the head of the CIA, you're going to make sure the FBI, because that's how our agencies work. They don't work together. They all are talking shit on each other.
They're in competition for funding. Yeah. There's only so much money in the cookie jar. And so these agencies want to get the biggest slice that they can for themselves.
They want a nice pizza party like those fucking poor employees get every year.
A pizza party?
Yeah, that's what they do down here. Whenever they're like morale's low on the thing, instead of getting a raise, they just buy you some pizza.
Oh wow, how generous!
Yeah, I think that we get one every year at our work.
Oh
like,
my
how about
gosh.
a raise?
No, we don't have that. No, we don't have that. We don't have pizza parties. That's new to me.
Sorry for your loss.
Oh, it's all right. I love pizza. What's your favorite topping?
I'm not getting into this discussion. I'm not getting into
Well, you're not going to say ham and pineapple, are you?
I do like ham and pineapple.
Right. You're one of those weirdos.
How is that weird? That's like I think putting anchovies on pizza is weird, but people do it. So what?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm a pepperoni guy. I like pepperoni.
They're like, I want anchovies and I want black olives on mine. And I'm like, you just want to have bad breath, don't you? You just want to basically yawn.
You antisocial bastard.
Yeah,
you just don't want anyone within. You don't want anyone within 10 feet of you. Extra garlic.
They're either bastards or they're smart. That's what they're doing.
Well, yeah, still antisocial.
Called the icebreaker commercial where it says 6 feet of safety or something like that. That's what it is.
Oh, don't you bringing back? You giving me PTSD talking about 6 feet of safety, 6 feet separation.
Okay, sorry,
we had all those rules over here,
Phil.
A few years ago.
I'm gonna wrap it up because I know you seem like you're drifting a little bit, but I appreciate. Oh, it's fine. I appreciate the time. I know this was last minute and everything like that, but I appreciate the time you gave me to talk on my show. Is there a place where people can find your links?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Amish Inquisition podcast. You can find an Amish Inquisition.
Yeah, just Google in it. You can just Google shit
with your mind.
Probably. Yeah.
I wonder if they would have the Amish
just
Inquisition
take some salvia
in the salvia trip.
Yeah. I guess so. Maybe it'd be like what's it called in DC Comics where everything's upside down?
Twilight Zone.
Yeah, kind of like the Twilight Zone. Like, well, there'll be a dark version of me
where
I'm actually a satanic. Yeah. There's like evil Flash and evil Superman.
Good stuff.
Bizarro. They call it Bizarro. Bizarro Superman. I'd be Bizarro, Phil.
Okay.
In the Salvia realm.
Well, I'm just going to link your Amish Inquisition podcast into the description, like always. And Phil, it's been a pleasure knowing you all these years. It's been about, 3 years now we've known each other?
Probably, if not more, yeah.
And you get better looking every time.
Thanks. But you don't.
I know. You told me I look like shit this morning. I was like, God, wearing my Norm Macdonald t-shirt.
Hey, I'm wearing your. Did you say I'm wearing your t-shirt?
Wear it every time. I appreciate that. Look at my eyes coming out.
Okay. Look at those eyeballs.
All right.
Bizarro world.
All right, world. Thank you for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank. Stay tuned for our next episode.